news and traffic, Mulcair and many, Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. It's all here on one big show. Montreal on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That's our new promo. Thank you, Brian. Tom, how you doing?
Well, that's very interesting. I'm fine.
Oh, that's
How are
good.
you guys?
Good. Welcome to Montreal. That's from a customer service call we lifted some woman yelling, and it's made Natasha laugh every time we play it this afternoon. So
That
we're going to
poor
use it every
woman.
now and then.
She does not need a supervisor.
No.
She needs an
She
exorcist.
needs help.
Yeah.
Tom Mulcair is brought to you by the folks at Guaranteed Industries. They are the folks, of course, who can take care of all your heating needs right through the winter, because winter apparently is about to start. Give them a call, 514-342-3400, or you can get them online at guaranteedindustries.com. Tom, a couple of different places to go today. I'm just wondering, has there been any kind of new scuffle between Justin Trudeau and Francois Legault? When I say scuffle, I mean, in words.
No, the only thing we got out of Legault was some news about his meeting with Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, and I think that went swimmingly. And I think that Trudeau is doing his best to use his 3 days in Hamilton to roll out sort of apologies. So they rolled out Minister Fraser, who's in charge, of course, of immigration, and he did his very best to try to put some of the toothpaste back in the tube for the fact that he has several million people in a backlog in his ministry. And then it was Karina Gould's turn to come out and do a little mea culpa around the absolute total incompetence of delivering, or failing to deliver, in fact, passports to Canadians, and saying, oh, no, we've got it all figured out. It's going to get much better in short order. So this is the type of thing they've been doing. They've got every camera and microphone in the country there with them in Hamilton, and they've been using it to very good effect because they're very good at what they do.
I wonder if this theory of death by 1,000 cuts will come back to haunt the Liberals, right? We have the Arrive Can scandal back in the news. We have the McKinsey issue.
And back in the news big time.
Yeah.
I mean, and deservedly so.
Okay, so money doled out that ended up going someplace it shouldn't have gone. Someone pocketed an awful lot of money. But that's just one in a fairly long list recently, Tom. And obviously
exactly.
This is fodder for the opposition, but...
One of the guys that I used to work with, Pierre Paradis, used to always use the same image. He's saying, "Le Jello est en train de prendre." The Jello is starting to get solid there. Like the perception in the public. I mean, Trudeau is a great politician. Let's not kid ourselves. And the Liberals are an incredible political machine. That's why they've been in power for most of Confederation. But at some point, the overarching perception is that, one, they're giving contracts to their buddies who write foodie magazines, and they're giving them $100,000 to do political communications for which they have no experience, and they're taking tens of millions of dollars and giving it to a two-person operation so they can dole it out and come up with this absolutely unusable Arrive Can app that you just correctly talked about. So that overall feeling that they just don't know how to shoot straight, they can't run the government, that goes above stuff. Like, you can talk about the Constitution and have a fight between Trudeau and Legault over the weekend, and you can have the next thing that pops up on the radar screen. But beyond that, there's a perception. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to have it every day. And even if the passport does get sorted out, people are not going to talk about that. But they've got to remember that whatever else they did, and they've done a lot of things well, but whatever else they did, they had a heck of a hard time running the government. And that's an opening for Poilievre's Conservatives, because they don't have to go crazy the way Poilievre likes to go crazy sometimes in what he does. They just have to talk to Canadians and say, you deserve better. And I think that might be one of the key themes of the next campaign.
And I wonder, how long can you keep using that same line if you're Justin Trudeau? But, we had to do what we could to get everything out the door as quick as we could. It was a pandemic. I understand that, and I think Canadians probably get that to a point, but can you use that excuse, or condition rather, for everything?
Well, let's stay with that example of the Arrive Can app. You and I have done a dozen shows about this, because you had friends and family and colleagues and acquaintances, as did I, who were calling me. I remember with one friend coming up from the States, I got hold of the office of an MP who were incredibly kind and very helpful. They have one of their children was in a wheelchair, and they had a very specially adapted vehicle, and they didn't have the luxury of going through the airports. They had to take a land entry, and it was impossible. The Arrive Can app did not work. And so the government was told that. Minister Alghabra was told that. Prime Minister Trudeau was told that. And they kept saying, no, it works fine. But everybody who tried to use it said, no, it doesn't work. Everything's broken at the border. You can't use this app. So this app cost tens and tens of millions of dollars. It went to a two-person operation in the Ottawa area. They farmed it out to some other companies, some of which are actually, serious companies. And they pocketed, as you say, a whole ton of money. and this thing never did the job it was supposed to do. That's not because of the pandemic. That's because somebody decided to give this massive contract to a two-person operation, and that makes no sense.
Okay.
I keep thinking to myself, you always highlight the poor management skills, right? And I think they're not detail oriented. Like when we hear about Munchmore Media, the food company getting it's like a lack of looking at the details, and then we're led to having yet another investigation, yet another inquiry, and that's what we cling to in terms of perception. But I want to move on to speaking of perception, my perception of what's going on in Hamilton right now is that they're not getting any work done at all. That this is just completely a PR exercise and photo op.
Yeah. But the work is going to be a little bit of schmoozing. Every time there's going to be a meal, Mr. Trudeau will do several different tables. He'll have a bit of FaceTime with every MP, because you'd think, well, they're at question period together, they must get a chance to talk. No, the average MP on those many MPs on the back benches, they don't get a chance to talk with their prime minister that often. So the caucus is a chance to go up and lobby a minister for a project in your riding, get a little bit more friendly with one that you think might be able to help you in this big project. And it's a human relations exercise. And it's also about hand-holding, because they have been through a lot. They know they're getting pummeled. Trudeau was on the defensive in a very long interview that he gave to the Toronto Star that resulted in this rather bizarre, long 3-minute rant that Poilievre does walking through the airport. But it shows how this thing is becoming set up for the next campaign whenever it does come. It's really, it's going to be a battle of titans. And even though I for a long time thought that Trudeau might think better of it, I think that he can't resist the idea of having this one last go against Poilievre.
Mm-hmm. What was the rant about? I missed that. So Poilievre filmed himself.
So he's walking through the airport. Part of his interview that Trudeau had given with Susan Delacourt, he was essentially saying, the Conservatives, and talking about Poilievre directly and indirectly, want to go back to a time when men were men, and want to go back and talking about, when colonial attitudes towards First Nations and stuff like this. So basically calling, without quite using the word, but basically calling the Conservatives racists. Well, that's how Poilievre interpreted it, and basically did this rant walking through the airport and saying, well, I have time to do this because, of course, my plane's not on time, and that's because of Justin Trudeau. Yeah. And he says he's calling us racist, but he's the one who wore blackface any number of times, and it just goes from there.
Okay.
And it's available on his Twitter feed, and it's actually a very interesting bit of political information. If you want to understand a bit more how the game is played, this is where a younger guy like Poilievre knows how to use social media. But watch his facial expressions and try to turn off the sound. He doesn't look like a happy camper, and he might be upset with what Trudeau did, and he might be showing it. But at some point, he's got to be trying to draw people into the Conservative Party in the next campaign. And I think that an exercise like this really backfired on him. Emmanuelle Latraverse, a very respected journeyman, journalist that I work with over on the French side, she had a very tough paper that she wrote about that today.
I will tell you, in watching that, and I watched the whole thing, I kept wanting to stop. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you walking? I mean, you're in an airport. Yeah. I understand you could just simply say, I'm going to my flight. He walked the entire time, so there's someone filming him. And I
thought it was actually him holding out his camera.
No.
So maybe
there's no way.
Backwards.
There was someone filming him. You couldn't do that for the entire time. I don't think that you were walking through the airport. I just thought that was kind of silly. Say what you have to say. Why do we have to watch you walking through Pearson Airport or wherever he happened to be that time? It's just weird.
So I have to go follow him on. I have to follow Poilievre now on Twitter. Is this what you're telling me?
No, Tom's telling you exactly the opposite.
Just stay on CJAD 800 and not even think about leaving for 1 second.
Yeah, you'll just have to learn everything from listening to Tom talk about that. Listen, I know this is not a topic, but you're bringing this up, and I know this whole idea, will there be an election, won't be an election, has been kind of talked to death here.
Out there.
I want to just ask the question. I think I may have asked this a couple of weeks ago. It seems to me, and I think you said at one point, what the beneficiary here may end up being the Bloc Québécois, possibly, depending on how the battle goes between the Liberals and François Legault. Is Jagmeet Singh dead in the water here, Tom?
It's going to be a difficult campaign. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a very difficult campaign. He's according to some people, he's been given, a little bit of oxygen by Trudeau saying that he's open to Doug Ford having more private delivery even though you'd still be able to pay, well, with your Medicare card, in Ontario, your OHIP card. And Trudeau's been saying, no, this is okay. And I think a lot of Canadians are actually, I think Trudeau's the one who's reading the room right. Canadians don't want more constitutional or ideological or dogmatic battles. They want a result. So Jagmeet Singh is saying, no, you don't have any delivery that's anything other than public for healthcare. And I think that even though that's a long-standing view, one that I, of course, espoused when I was leader of the party, of the NDP, I also think that when what you're doing doesn't work, you've got to try to do something else. And right now, I think that Doug Ford and Trudeau are probably reading what the average Canadian wants better than Mr. Singh is. And on top of that, no matter how long his deal lasts with the Liberals, he's still going to have trouble on the doorstep. You know, you go knock on somebody's door in the next campaign and say, don't vote for the Liberals, they're a bunch of bums. And they say, but you're the one who's been voting for them for the past couple of years. Why should, how come they're so bad all of a sudden?
That's a good point.
So I think that becomes quite difficult for him in the next campaign. So yes, I think it reminds me a little bit of what happened to David Lewis, because he had done this sort of thing backing Trudeau, father, Pierre Trudeau, back in the day in a minority government, and then Trudeau just turned around like a piranha and ate the guy, and the NDP sunk to really, really a very low ebb.
Okay. By the way, before we get text, he did not really eat him. That's just a term.
No,
a term.
It's an image.
There was no cannibalism involved in that. Tom Mulcair, back tomorrow morning with Andrew Carter at about 7:40 a.m. Thank you, Tom.
Take care.